Hi, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jens Padeo, and as you're seeing, I'm having a guest on today. It's been a while since I've done an interview. I've done an interview with Patricia Corrie, with Thomas Meyer, and with some other people. Check those out. But today I'm having Tara from Earth on. We've met actually on the Beyond Mystic conference. I work for Beyond Mystic. I have a weekly show there. And Tara, you had a stand there. You're a healer. So I got an energy healing, like Sunny's my wife Meg's friend. She said, I've gotten an energy healing from Tara. It's really good. Check it out. So of course, after all my job was done, all my jobs were done at the conference. I kind of want to. I'm an energy healer myself. We're going to talk a lot about healing in this interview. So welcome, Tara. Maybe introduce yourself first a little bit for the public. Who you are, what do you do, where you're from. So give us the laydown.
Yeah, so I'm Tara. Tara from Earth is kind of my name. I'm a universal intuitive. I've been an astrologer for about 8 years now. I've been making content online, and so I've always been in kind of the woo world. And I've just always been. I love diving deep into topics and trying to understand human behavior, ourselves, why we're here, the whole spiritual path. So that's kind of how I got started. And just within the last few years, things just picked up. And I knew I was supposed to get into some sort of healing. I always do, like, I'm a healer, okay? Like, I know what that means, but I never understood, like, what that path looked like. I knew it looked different than other healers that I was around, and I was just really patient. And that was when I stumbled upon a booth at a holistic event, and it was called Marconics, and I was like, "What is that? That sounds." But I was just so intrigued by the frequency, so I went over there. I got a sample session, and I was like, "This is what I'm supposed to do." So then I became an energy worker for the last 2.5 years. And I've been doing that along with making content. I go to trade shows, holistic shows, I do workshops. And I'm trying to just bring people up a little bit higher for this ascension cycle that we are currently in right now. So I'm trying to pull in those multidimensional frequencies that everyone can access, so that we can ascend as smoothly as possible.
That's cool. And what were you doing before? Because everybody who is into this has like a bit of a life in the 3D before and then a
Absolutely.
life after. What were
Yeah,
you were you doing anything?
absolutely.
What were you doing before that?
I've always been an artist, a creator. I've been in graphic design. So I've been a graphic designer my whole life. I've been working for marketing agencies and things like that. Had a boss, had a 9 to 5. And I grew up in Kansas, so I grew up in a pretty conservative state, and I really was feeling drawn to be more creative and expressing myself, and I felt very limited in that ability to do that. So that was kind of my upbringing, but I've always been very artistic, and I knew I wanted to be in the arts, and I ended up, of course, a lot of artists, graphic designers, we just go right into marketing. And so I was in marketing for a while, and I was working for a boss, and I never liked it. I feel like I got fired from a job. I just was not someone to work at those, in those old societal constructs. So then I just kind of made the plan like 6 years ago. I was like, I just want to work for myself. And so I started freelancing, graphic design, marketing, social media content, learning on my own, things like that. And started working for small businesses. And I mean, I was burning myself out. I was really burning myself out, working for other people, giving my energy to other people, helping them succeed. And so that was the path I really fell on, is just the giving, giving, giving. And then it was finally, when I had my more spiritual awakening, that was when I was like, okay, I need to bring the energy back to myself. I need to focus more on myself. So I started just doing research, and I started in astrology. Astrology really helped me connect to who I really was and understand myself on a deeper level. I started healing, and yeah, I realized like I need to be using my own creative gifts and skills for myself now. Like I wanted to really just use all my art and gifts that I was given and put it back into me. But of course, with that comes a lot of challenges, and you know, we all kind of go through that as creators and ourselves. So it was just a lot of deep healing that I had to do on my own, and yeah, but that's kind of how I got to where I am now. And I've learned to really step more into my own power and now be able to share my gifts in a more balanced way that supports me as a healer, creator, as an artist, and also others, to serve others.
Yeah, very interesting. There's so many, things I want to talk about. But first of all, maybe, you talked about the Marconics energy healing, and I did Reiki myself. 50. It's been 15 years ago already.
Mhm.
In my 20s, then I did Reiki too. I did blueprint healing, and for me, it's all about different frequencies. Like Reiki is more older because it comes from Japan, like from the 1900s, and then I learned blueprint healing that comes from Dr. Eric Pearl with his book The Reconnection. I don't know if you know that. But and then you got Marconic, and for me, what I've because I've experienced the healing with the Marconic energy healing from you. For me,
Mhm.
the Marconic energy healing and frequency, it felt more closer to the blueprint healing from Eric Pearl.
Yes.
Just the nature of the energies, because it's maybe a new frequency that's coming onto Earth that's becoming available. Because Reiki has been around for a long time, it's different. It's still valuable, in my opinion. It's just different. So where does it come from, and how does it tune into all these modalities of energy healing that we know today?
Yeah, so that's what's crazy about it, right? We're entering a completely new world, new phase. So Marconics is a completely new modality that was founded around 2012 by Alison Bird, who was a clairvoyant, and she ended up channeling this information. And so we knew that we were beginning. Of course, the original ascension was in 2012. That was like when we were intended to ascend for global planetary ascension, where Earth, where we would all go into a higher frequency together. But at that time, humanity, including light workers and healers, we were not ready. We weren't ready yet, and so we had to go to a plan B. So plan B was the ascension through the human portal. And so we all, a lot of us, not everybody, subconsciously chose to do the ascension through the portal. Um, so that was the plan B. And so that's why Marconics was gifted to us in 2012, because we're located back on the galactic core. We're able to kind of hone in and bring in these higher frequencies outside of this 3D matrix. So Reiki and all those modalities were made for the 3D light body template. And so Marconics is actually pulling from outside the grid. So it's pulling from the universal matrix source field frequency to help facilitate deeper healing and clearing, kind of like overwrite the 3D coding of our DNA and light body template. So yeah, it's more of like a scalar frequency, where Reiki and a lot of the modalities here are, working with the electromagnetic field. Marconics is using more scalar, which is more multidimensional, non-polarized frequencies that it's more information intellectual based, that, like I said, is kind of just overwriting that 3D coding so that we can get back to our original base 12 blueprint.
Hmm. Interesting. And you said it was channeled. So, what is the source? So, where does it come from? Like the Marconics, is it like does it have a name? Like the person you named, her name was, I
Her
forget,
name's
Allison.
Alice Bird. She is the founder of it, and she has kind of a crazy story. She did write a couple books that you can buy that kind of talks about the origins. But yeah, she was always she was intuitive, and she was actually connected with Pleiadian beings, and they're the ones that kind of broader this information. So it's a very Pleiadian type frequency. I don't want to limit it to just Pleiadian because we're pulling in a full spectrum of frequency. But the Pleiadians were kind of the ones that gifted this to Allison, and a lot of the practitioners, including myself, were Pleiadian. And that's kind of why that's part of our mission here and why we came to assist during this amazing time. So so it's pulling in frequencies from a new infrared system in space. Like I said, because we're just that much closer to the galactic core, we can access these frequencies. And so it's full spectrum. So it's pulling in, gamma ray, ultraviolet, radio wave, everything. And that's why it's called Marconics. Marconi, who was a partner of Tesla, was the founder of the radio wave. And he even thought it could be used for healing, which wasn't talked about too much at the time. So it's kind of going off of that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, very interesting. And it's funny that you mentioned that Pleiadian connection there, because when I said I felt like the blueprint healing, which I am familiar with, there was something similar. Has that Pleiadian connection, because the woman I learned it from in Belgium, well, she did it with Eric Pearl, and I also did courses on that. But there's also this Pleiadian connection there, so that's quite interesting that there's because I felt it was it wasn't the same, of course, but there was a similarity to it. For me, it feels much more lighter,
yes.
like the Marconics, much more lighter and much more subtle than, for example, the Reiki, which is, like you say, is much more 3D when you place your hands on people's body, and then you feel that warm energy flow that Reiki is known for. Well, Marconics doesn't, or blueprint healing doesn't have that. It's more like you say. So yeah, that's really interesting. That's really true in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about the light, because you talk about the light body, and of course we are incredible multidimensional beings. We are a grand design. I mean, our energy system, our energy body is so complex. I like to, Barbara Bennett was one of the first ones that really mapped it out, and she talked about all the different layers of our auras. But when you talk about the light body, do you talk about the aura, or do you talk about like the multidimensional aspect of the human being? Because there's a lot of confusion in what we mean. The aura can mean like all our layers, the emotional body, the mental body. But what do you mean when you talk about the light body?
Yeah, I even feel like the aura, which is still beautiful in its own way, is still kind of part of this 3D kind of matrix and concept. The light body, it's kind of what I'm talking about, is our multidimensional vehicle that allows our consciousness to travel into higher realms of existence. So it is multidimensional, and it serves as kind of that bridge between the physical and the non-physical aspects of who we are, so that we can anchor and embody that higher states of awareness. So yeah, I do think it's completely different than the auric field. The auric field, I think, is still very limiting, and it's just showing kind of what, like, people can, like, a lot of mediums or intuitives can see our auric field. So it's still within the density of the 3D 4D space. So that's kind of where the difference is. And the fully activated light body is aligned to the base 12 divine blueprint, which is how we can hold, integrate, and sustain those higher dimensional energies. So that's what can be activated, and then that can connect us to our oversoul matrix. So overall, I think the light body is really here to help really bring us that liberation, and that's what needs to be activated for all light workers and anyone on an ascension path. But of course, we have our 3D light body, and we're moving into more of our 5D light body template. And that's why Marconics is very important. It's the first modality that is working on the 5D light body template for that higher ascension process. So because we are all now ascending with the planet, we are having to update our own architecture and structures so that we can hold and sustain the higher frequencies coming in. And that is, part of the concern is with some healers and light workers, we're seeing that many of them aren't able to sustain. We're caught in looping, and our karma, we keep And that's just because we're so limited and confined to this 3D experience, and we're phase locked on the karmic wheel and for this experience. So the light body is essential for ascension, because it needs to be consistently activated as these higher frequencies are coming in. It's just like the earth is also getting activated, so are our physical vessels, so that we can hold higher light.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that I resonate with what you're saying because the aura is really more associated with, the personality in the here and now. While I feel from your explanation, the light body is more associated with the soul. So with our
Yeah,
like the divine blueprint, yeah, that's how I see it too. It's like
yeah,
you have the seven chakras on the body, but then you have your higher multidimensional, what they call it, like the eighth, ninth, 11th, 12th chakra. Does Marconics work with chakras in any way or?
it does. I mean, it does in terms of like, so there's two different protocols that I offer, and so it still does a deep clearing. The no touch protocol, which can be used as like an ongoing therapy, it does get those chakras spinning in the right directions, because as you know, each chakra spins differently, and so and that kind of facilitates that deeper clearing and healing. So we do, because in order to heal, we do have to clear those chakra centers and clear the karma with each of them. So yes, Marconic frequency does work on the chakras, but its its overall mission is actually to transcend the seven chakra system, and that is one of the other services that I provide, is to remove the caps off of the chakras, which is because we've been phase locked into this 3D experience and reality, and to completely transcend the seven chakra system so that we can get back to our original divine blueprint, which is one chakra organ working together. So while it does help facilitate the deep healing and clearing of the karma, our goal with Marconics is to actually transcend the seven chakra system, and to get us back to the 12 chakra system as well, to activate that, and through the divine blueprint.
Mhm. Very interesting. And is there in the Marconics, is there any information given in those channelings about why, who did this or why this was created? I mean, I've read it. I've read a lot of channeling books. Patricia Corey, like the ones of the first hour, Barbara Marciniak, those Pleiadians and stuff. Um, that also have their theories because why we kind of like fell, and it's talked about in the Bible that we fell in a lower state of vibration. That we're actually, as a human, our divine blueprint comes from the higher realms, and that's why I don't believe in evolution theory because that locks us into that materialistic thinking that
Yeah.
that we're descended from the apes or like the human apes, which I don't believe because I think we materialized and there was a certain fall. So, is there any information given in that Marconic information stream, so to say, about who caused this or why this happened?
There's it kind of does go back into a couple of the books of Marconics on there's a lot of why this happened, but yeah, ultimately, this can go back to certain galactic wars that were happening over time, and that created kind of the distortions in this reality, and why we did fall into more of a tin base structure. So there's some information out there. I think, like I said, Marconics is so new. So all of this information is just, we're all just now kind of channeling the truth. I guess we're all like, well, what's the truth, right? And so we're still having these conversations. But overall, there was distortion, within, it can be the fallout in the wars of Andromeda, and the cosmic kind of restructuring began. And so so we were on a path towards higher ascension, but we did fall back into the more 10 base, and then even maybe 8 base, divine blueprints. So for humanity. Yeah, so there's so much information out there, but overall, I think just on the path, we chose this experience for our own human kind of evolution and ascension to be able to learn more and to really embody all of the divine information so that we can get back to our higher who we really are. So I like to look more at, like, I guess, like the why, and like, why is this happening? Why are we here? And why did we have to go through the karmic cycle and karmic looping? And it's really just so we now have that wisdom. We can now hold that wisdom in our light body, in our physical body, and be able to grow the universe even more, and to understand ourselves and the universe even more. So I'm always going back to that why, which I think is always an important to ask. Why are we on this journey? And it all just comes down to the lessons we're learning and remembering who we really are.
Yeah, I resonate with it. And for the viewers, sorry if my camera is a bit shaking because my cat jumped on the. She's right here. Her tail, you could see her tail here. So if my camera is shaking a little bit, it's because my cat is jumping on the desk. But anyway, to continue, yeah, that really resonates what you're saying, and I do believe that we are. There's a lesson involved, even in that fall, like why it happens to remember ourselves, actually, to have that process of rediscovering our soul and all the gifts that come with that rediscovery. And it made me think of an experience I had years ago when I was doing a 5-day intensive. They called it 5D intensives with Michael Rhodes. He's passed away now. Was an amazing teacher, for me, at least. And there was a moment when we were like singing to the divine, and at a certain point I could feel like I was part of the divine, rediscovering the divine. It was like a loop, and that
Yeah.
was an amazing experience that always will remain with me. And what you were saying, like, makes me think of that. I don't believe we are in a, maybe get your opinion on this. I don't believe we are in a prison planet, because there's like, of course, there's the concept with Marconics. We there's like, there is a fall. There has maybe some sabotage by dark forces within the human evolution, I would say. But I don't believe. I think it all comes down to the lessons we learn. I don't believe we're in a prison planet. I don't believe we are trapped in this, and that this reality is designed as a trap. That's like, in some conspiracy slash spirituality circles, you see that coming up, and I don't really believe that. So I don't know what is your take on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of that going around, I guess, especially in this like shift to new earth. Everyone's like, oh, the matrix, it's an entrapment, it's enslavement. And in a sense, that is just like a perception of our ego, is like what is restricted to us, what is enslavement to us. But that's just a perception of our own ego at the end of the day. I didn't, I think I might have had those thoughts, a few years ago. And I know with the state of the world, everybody's kind of, it's easy to just say we've been enslaved and kind of be the victim, right? Like it's almost like a little bit of a victim mindset of like, I've been a victim to the matrix. And it's like, yeah, like, but at the same time, we were learning, we were trying to understand ourselves better. And every single role you've played is just a lesson and in something that's telling you more about yourself. And so I agree with you. I agree that I don't see it as enslavement anymore, because that's my own that's just like an egoic perception. So I see it as, we chose this, by the way, like we chose to devolve, we chose to understand, um, try to understand ourselves this way by coming through the karmic wheel, by being on the spectrum of evil and good. We wanted to come learn all of these experiences to be able to hold more cosmic information, so that we can all evolve and be part of something bigger than ourselves. So yeah, I think it's just, we can still get so attached to, yeah, it's attachment. I think we can get attached to these like concepts that get thrown around, especially in spiritual communities too, like Matrix bad, and it's just, that's just a judgment. I don't see any, you can't really see anything as good, or whether it's good or bad, but it just is. And again, it comes back to the lessons, I think, that we're all here to learn, and what it's taught us. And then seeing it, then you kind of, as you kind of evolve, you see it from more of a neutral perspective, where I'm like, I don't see that as bad, or I see more, everything as a little bit more neutral as you come up more on your path. And through Marconics, it's really taught me just how to see things a lot more neutral, how to observe the experience that we are in, and observe the duality of what ascension is versus enslavement. And I actually enjoy that now, where I'm at, compared to where I was like even 5 years ago. So, but yeah, everyone's on their different path and will have different perceptions. But I agree. I don't think that, I don't see it as an enslavement anymore. You're only like, that's just you believing you have that's just a limitation on you. So I don't see it as anything like nothing enslaves me. I'm a divine being, and yeah, and so that's how I choose to see the world now.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, it's about choosing, choosing to see, because they always say in the spiritual community, your perception determines your reality, right? So the way
Mhm.
we don't see life as it is, but we see life how we think it is. So if you think you're living in a prison, you're somehow you're limit, like you say, you're limiting your perception, you're limiting yourself, and it never resonated with me. Of course, I can see the Matrix, like the conspiracy against humanity. There you can see that in the mainstream media. They're working towards keeping people in that limiting belief system of reality, evolution theory and all that stuff, official science. Okay, that is there. We can see that, and that's indeed an attempt at enslavement. I mean, we have to call it out as it is. But it's a
Yeah.
whole other thing to say that reality, the God-given reality that we experience, the beautiful nature that's out there. I mean, I can see it right now from my window, that is a prison. That's something indeed I don't resonate with. So yeah, so continuing on. Um, well, I love traveling. I've traveling a lot with Meg, and we've traveled a lot to the United States. You're from the United States. You're from Colorado.
Mhm.
Now you're in Texas. You told me, and I want to talk a little bit about the current global energies and the energies of the United States, because the United States is such a leading country. Whatever happens there, influences the whole world. I mean, when Trump says something, here and everybody in Belgium goes. So it does influence the whole world. So let's start off maybe with what is your experience living? I mean, I love the United States. I think they say it's a cliche to say it's the greatest country on earth, but I do believe it's a really great country.
Yeah.
The nature, the energy, the power that it holds. I think that's why it's also so visible on the world stage. Now, there's also a lot of difference between the states, but let's start off. Mate, what do you think? What do you feel now in the states, in the United States? What is your take on the current energies in the states? The political climate, anything like you find it's like pertinent right now.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I do. I love the United States, and it's been such an interesting ride, even over the last 5 years. I'm so really grateful to be here. Yeah. I mean, the US is the central point for the entire world. And that was like a specific, like, a a plan. That was a specific plan. The United States is kind of that center point for the rest of the world, and you can definitely feel that, right? We feel that. It kind of holds that, like, so I don't know. It's not the solar plexus, but it feels like almost that solar plexus energy of the world that's like really running, that power and that energy. And there's so many beautiful things about the United States, and why I love to be here, and why I prefer to be here sometimes, even though I love to travel the world. This really is a great place for those opportunities as entrepreneurs, as creatives. And so, but yeah, the shift from the last 5 years has been really crazy. Like I said, I've been in Colorado for the last 8 years, 8 or 9 years. And of course, Colorado really shifted over 2020. And I live more in Boulder County. There are other red areas of Colorado, but it's mostly, a lot of it's blue. And I really noticed the shift, of course, in 2020. And I felt myself working through even the energy from 2020 just this last year, with the election and everything. There was so much of my own frustrations that were coming up, just things that didn't feel resolved from 2020. I was just like, why are we not talking about this? Like, we need to talk about this. And luckily, I've worked so much on myself that I'm like, I can let it go now. But um the energy, I feel it's such a shift. I think I can really feel now, and I haven't been traveling too much in the last year. I usually travel a lot, but I can feel where the agendas are aligning a lot easier. I can really tell Colorado is it has such a, and I love Colorado and I hate saying it, but it's just I can really sense that, the kind of the darker agendas that are happening there. And because I'm on I'm on the consciousness path, for humanity, I just don't feel like I belong. Like, it's hard for me to really feel like I belong there. And that's just something I've noticed within the last year of living there. And it's been really hard to move. And I feel that just weight. You can just feel the heaviness and people just being unhappy and frustrated, and then that leads to disconnection. So I haven't really felt like part of a community there. I feel like a lot of that's getting lost, and it is that kind of whole divide and separate. I was really feeling in Boulder County. That could be in different areas, could be different. This is just my experience. So it just like, the way I see it is it's like just this blanket. It's a very light blanket, but what it's doing is it is really disrupting and creating discordance in the frequency, in the collective, in the consciousness of the area, and I can feel that immensely. And I can really feel the AI agendas really kicking in Colorado, Denver, and Boulder. So that's what I was noticing. And then, yeah, I just got to Texas a couple weeks ago, and it was just like, whoa, like the energy shift was just so different. The contrast was so different. Just because Texas, I mean, here I just felt I felt more of that freedom. I felt the liberation. I mean, everyone knows tech. Everyone's just kind of, who they are here. And there's something so that I just respect so much about the culture here. And I even went to Dallas last week, and it was such a different energetic shift from Denver, showing just the contrast of kind of what the darker agenda is kind of doing versus what the light is doing. And I'm not saying all of Texas is light, but that was just, I was like, wow, like, and then I felt the power. I just felt like people can actually really thrive here and grow and create. And I know a lot of other light workers are being called to Texas right now. Texas is getting overloaded, but there's a reason for it. And places hold frequency. And I think because we're in such a transitional time right now, it's an important space for people to be able to be themselves and be authentic and make the right connections. And there's a lot of business out here, corporate out here. And it's just something that I really clicked for me, I guess, just within the last month. I didn't realize how heavy things were getting on the political front, especially where I was living. And it is sad to see those areas, part of the country, but also I love to see the thriving, and I can really feel the U.S. thriving in Texas, right? Like, I can feel the higher the frequency happening, the higher agendas happening as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of. Would you say that when you're talking about this like AI agenda, and would you say that California is heading the same way a little bit as California? Not to mean bash California, because California is a beautiful
I
state, but
know.
I've been there and I do notice also that there's like the net zero agenda there. Like maybe two questions, like how did you see that AI agenda evolving there? And does it compare to California more? Is it like
Yeah, I think it's definitely connected. I mean, I think that agenda itself holds its own consciousness. So it's just kind of like laying out those templates. Like, again, like there's just templates being spread in certain areas across the country, across the world. And I'm very aware of those templates. And I think most intuitive people are, I'm sure you are, and we can just feel like, ooh, like I don't feel like, so I can feel it a lot in Denver, and I feel it's the exact same consciousness that's happening as well in parts of California. I won't speak on all of California, but yeah, I agree. I would say like more LA area, things like that. You could if you just tap into it, you're like, oh yeah, ooh, feeling that, and um, so yeah, that's just something I've been picking up. And so I kind of know, and honestly, there's been a lot of my personal light workers that I've been around. They're like, there's areas of like Florida that actually Miami, like there's actually kind of a hub of consciousness there, Florida area, Texas, um, in some areas of New York, but it's still yeah, like it's just like I said, those templates are being set right now. That's what's happening in this transitional phase that we are in, and the U.S. will still be like that, and all over the world. So it's just kind of like discerning, and discernment of what's right for you, what's not, and that's why discernment really needs to be is really important right now for where you want to relocate, what communities you want to get involved in. And it's one of the biggest things I really am going to start stressing on my channels and stuff, is especially with spiritual community and the psychological warfare. It's just going to get so much harder and more blurry, because even the darker agendas will know how to kind of manipulate and create that false light for a lot of people, and specifically light workers, who I feel like I really want to try to protect, to keep them very sovereign as we make our way through this corridor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I see what I also see moving forward is like what you're saying is like it's gonna depend more and more where there's gonna be like they talk like about splitting of timelines, and like birds of a feather flock together. And I feel like, especially in the last years, this has really accelerated. So people who don't want, who want to, people who want to go along with the narrative, that these forces have played, have the path that they've kind of paved, want to pave for us. People who just unquestioningly, obediently follow that path. Um, it's going to get kind of concentrated in certain areas, and people are going to move around the world to move
Yeah,
to different areas that are lighter. And there's going to be areas in the world I see, mostly some big cities like LA. I have to say, yesterday I went to a city called Ghent here, and maybe some Belgians from Ghent will be angry at me for saying this, but and it's also a very like woke city, like California, like when you drive in with an old car, you get fined because your car is
yeah,
like bad for the climate and all that stuff. And and I saw so many homeless there for the first time. And it's the same thing happening in Los Angeles and San Francisco, right? Where also that agenda is really like more of that energy is playing out. And it's like, everywhere where this energy of this agenda is coming, there's like so many homeless appearing, which is kind of like a reflection, like it's a reflection to us, right? The homeless, because it's like, how can we as a society allow this, and it's happening. So I think this is gonna be, and it's gonna implode on itself. I think in the future, because it's not sustainable. But I think we're gonna see this splitting of. So how do
yeah,
you see this? Because they talk about splitting of timelines. How do
yeah.
you see it moving forward on the earth? I see like this more demarcation, where people are really going to move to different areas, and there's going to be like a side by side a little bit where there's maybe more smart cities, and you got more communities living. Um, how do you see this evolving for the states and for the world?
Yeah. So yeah, currently, yeah, we're in the 4D corridor. So 4D is always a transitional phase between the collapsing 3D matrix and the stabilizing of the 5D consciousness. So we are experiencing the bifurcation of timelines. So individuals must choose, between remaining in the familiar 3D experience or ascend into higher dimensional realities. So that is just where we're at, and that's why. So 4D right now, which is where the planet still is, it's not a final destination. Of course, it's kind of like this cosmic bridge, where all our unresolved karma, density, and distortions are resurfacing to be reviewed, and cleared. So that's why, it's transition, and it reflects, of course, the transition within us. So that's why, like, people are like, okay, I got to move, I'm going to move here. And they could be, depending on what their own path is, they could be just clearing karma, moving around. They're trying to kind of find where they're at. And that's why everything's so intense right now, right? It's because our old identities, our timelines, and realities are really collapsing at rapid speed. And we are really being pushed to make a choice right now, to either anchor these higher frequencies coming in or stay bound to the old 3D constructs. So, like, for me personally, I'm like, Colorado, I just don't feel resonant right now. It could change in 5 years. I don't see it going the way I want to at the moment when I'm looking ahead in the future. But I'm making a choice right now. I'm like, where's my alignment? Where can I start? And where can I start setting my own templates, to help assist others as well? And so I just feel more resonant to Texas. And so, yeah, everyone's making choices right now. And the choices we make is what's kind of rippling across our own, lifetimes and realities. So, in terms of just how I see the future, it's just, it is what it is. We are going to, like, I'm choosing to step into an aligned space for me. So to me now, Colorado does, like, the other agendas, I'm not as going to be as aware of, because I'm going to be living on a kind of a different frequency, because that's what I'm choosing. And that's how I see it's going to be, just all based on your own consciousness level, what your own choices are and what you want to resonate with. And that's why it's going to get really interesting, I think, over the next 5 or 10 years, because we are just going to be living out our own frequency, and creating from there. So I completely feel my reality is completely shifted from my one in Colorado. And that's because I'm choosing to go with the higher alignment of ascension into, in anchoring in those 5D frequencies. That's where I'm choosing to go. And so I think that it comes down to that choice of how we want to see the world. What world do you want to build? And of course, we're going to be observant to other things happening around us. But I think over time, like, we are going to be so split that we're not even going to be in contact with each other. Like, we're not going to unless we consciously choose to, which I don't think we will, because our frequencies will be on different levels for those who are wanting to remain in this 3D fallen matrix of the AI, or choose to go higher. So I think those who are all choosing to go higher will only see what's higher. And I think that's where we're heading. But of course, right now, it's just going to be kind of messy, because we're all having to make the choices, and we're going to have to see, this path or this path, and that's why the 4D corridor that we're in is so crazy and very interesting to observe and to have conversations about, because we're all navigating it a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you say, I agree. It's all about choice, right? I mean, nobody can control you unless you give them explicitly or implicitly, like subconsciously, permission. If you don't choose to grow, if you choose to go along with the path that somebody else laid out for you, then you're making the choice on that timeline, actually. And I think it's really interesting. Also, we got to consider the bigger reincarnational perspective, because this is one lifetime, but souls, of course, your life doesn't end when you let go of your physical body. So that also determines what you will experience in your future as a soul. So I don't believe in the story that everybody will wake up at the same time. There's these that's like the old concept of spirituality, where the whole world will ascend to 5D and everybody will be awakened. I don't believe that, because we were seeing that. We were seeing some people choosing to really follow this AI transhuman agenda a little bit longer, maybe as a soul. That's a possibility, and they will maybe go on their own timeline. So yeah, So I do. It's about choices basically, and it's about being, like you say, being aware, observing, and being conscious. Because the more
Mhm.
conscious you are, the more you are not lived by external forces that want to influence you, and the more you're standing in your power as a soul. Yeah. So
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting times. We're in very intense times. It's gonna be very interesting. Yes. So maybe to close off,
Yeah.
um, I kind of want to take it back to how you experienced the COVID times, because that was a very intense times for everybody. A lot of people woke up then. I mean, I started getting into spirituality and conspiracy 20 years ago, or 20 in 2004, and there were not a lot of people awake. So the COVID really woke a lot of people up. So how did it affect you? Where were you? Were you really aware of these? Because you have the spiritual, but you also have like the conspiracy side, where
Exactly.
you have to
Yeah.
have both. So
You
where
have to
were
have
you?
both, right?
Yeah. Where
I
were
think
you at, and how did it influence
you
you?
definitely have to have both in the world, and yeah, I mean, I think my conspiracy path was, the opening to my spiritual path. I think that's how everyone had to find it, right? It's like I had to go through kind of the darkness, like the darkest stuff, right? The down the rabbit hole to really find the light. And that's, I think, why the conspiracy path takes people that way. So, yeah, I've been into conspiracy theories since I was like little. I was really into the JFK assassination. I remember visiting the we went to the museum in Dallas, and it was just intriguing to me. I just didn't understand, and that was just my that was kind of like a first little point of my life that I can remember being really like questioning, just constantly wanting to question and understand what's happening. And then yeah, like 2017, like I was really, I moved to Colorado in 2015, and I was really trying to understand. I was like, because I came from a very conservative background. My parents are conservative, Kansas, and then I jumped to Colorado, which is pretty liberal. And I didn't ever label myself, but I always was like kind of pulled. I was just trying to learn. I always feel like I was always independent thinker, and I was just trying to learn. And when you're in your 20s, you kind of want to reject what you grew up with, right? You kind of want to rebel. I was like, I'm not a conservative. Like I don't want to vote for Trump, like da da da. But I also was like, wait, this isn't me either. And so I was in this like kind of that middle point where I think everyone gets to on their path, where they're like, what's going on, and who am I, and what is aligned? If I don't, I need to pick a side. Like, I don't know, but that's like what happened for me. And that was around 2017. And then 2017, I started to finally do that deeper research on going into Trump. And I was really finding I started like doing tarot, and astrology really helped me as well develop these skills that helped me look deeper into conspiracies. And that's kind of how I found Janine later on. And I was just like, wow, like there's a lot unfolding for me right now. So I was very aware of the state of everything around 2018. And then yeah, around 2020, I was going through my Saturn return, and so that was another just big wave. And but I was just really diving deep into all of the everything. I mean, everything that was about Trump and COVID. And then COVID came up, and I think I think the fear came up. Like I could feel the fear, and I think I was probably also picking up on the collective fear and what was being pushed out in the media. And that really did affect me. I remember there for a couple months, and but I'm just somebody that's like, if I have a fear, I want to understand it. And like, it kind of goes back to like being like a hypochondriac when I was little, like, okay, what's happening? I have a headache. But that actually helped me move through some of my own emotions and understand. And so then I started understanding a little bit about what the media was pushing. I started questioning, of course, the mask thing. And I felt it was a very isolating time as well. I mean, everyone was isolated, but it felt even deeper at that time because I was really going deeper into all of this, all of these other darker concepts that I didn't fully understand, that I couldn't talk to anybody about. And that's what brought me to online community, which I'm so thankful for, because that's what really got me through those times when you felt so isolated with your own beliefs just going crazy. And I couldn't, and like I said, I lived in Boulder County, which was very heavy on the masks, heavy on everything. I couldn't really talk to anybody. And then of course when the vaccines, I was like, no, like I'm not getting it. And that was hard. That was really hard, because as like an empathic person that looks for friendship and everything like that, it was hard for me to tell my friends that I wasn't getting it, and then losing friends because of that. And I mean, I went through just a lot of loss, but what I did find was, my true sovereignty and my true self, and knowing that I don't want to be manipulated ever again by anybody. And so, but like I said, I carried a lot of frustration during that time that came out within this last year. And there's still, like, sometimes it'll come up, but I really moved through that, I think, over the last 6 months. Because I think a lot of us, like, went through. We were just frustrated. We're tired of not being seen and not being valid. Like our that we were right. Like, I wanted to be told I was right, and like those were emotions I was working through. And now I don't have to. Now I know that, like, my truth is my truth, and I can move forward with that. But yeah, being in Colorado during 2020 was really tough for me, but but also I'm really grateful for it, because it grew me as a person. It grew my spirituality, my connection to myself. I know myself so much better now, and I now know I will never be, yeah, like I said, manipulated by the media or by my friends, by my environment,
Mhm.
ever again. And it just brought me back to myself.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is what is, a lot of people have had the same experience. In the end, we stood our ground. We came out more independent. We came out more stronger. We showed we had the backbone. And we passed the test in a way, as you could say it, or maybe you couldn't call it a test, but anyway. So yeah, so that was, and I only see it getting better. They might try some tricks. They might have some tricks up their sleeve, but we are ready. We are prepared because we passed the first test. So,
We
um,
passed. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you want to add something or?
Yeah, I mean, I know I was just kind of going off what you just said. It's just like, I don't, for those who have already seen what they've seen and been through what they've been through, like, there's no way that anybody will fall, I think, back into any of that. Um, my goal is just to keep pushing out that, like, while we still can, like, it's important to still be aware of what's going on in the world. I don't ever want anyone just, you don't have to be oblivious to it, but like, but also just not get attached either to any outcome. Just, it's about just coming back to ourselves and staying true to ourselves, and your own connection of what's true, what's not, what feels right in your heart. Even though we don't know what's going to happen in the future and what's happening, it's really about being present, because that's how we're going to create the new world, the new future, the new earth. The new earth isn't a future thing where we need to create new government and new AI tech, consciousness tech, and all this. It's really about being present, and I think that's my message. I'm trying to put out a lot more now, because everyone feels it's chaotic right now. Time is accelerating. I need to do this. Light workers are like, I need to live my purpose right now. I need to do it. And it's really just like, no, just be still, be present, sit with yourself, like, actually be slow right now. Like, being slow, you're ahead of the game, honestly. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. We are moving so fast with our technology. It really has become an art to slow down and be conscious in the moment, because that's where it's at, right? When we attune more to the lower, not lower, the slower vibrations of nature, which are actually very beneficial. The pulse of the earth, instead of this very fast technology and this crazy world today. So yeah, I fully agree that is the challenge that we are facing, even as healers, because we're all working with technology and stuff like that. So yeah, so to close off, where can people find you if they want to book an energy healing session with you? Do you have a site or something?
Yeah. So you can go to terrafromearth.com, and you can learn more about my two services that I provide. I do offer one is remote, so I can offer remote sessions, and that is still a really powerful clearing for you. Like I said, it's activating those axis tonal system of the body that connects you back to the universe and activating that 12 base divine blueprint. That's what we're trying to get back to. So yeah, you can book online, and the other one is in person, but I do travel with this work, so you can feel free to just reach out to me. I'm also on Instagram and YouTube, so if you want to just I make content. I want to continue to make content, and you can feel free to check me out there as well. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you. And before we go, I also want to add something that me and Meg have done,
Yeah,
are going to do. We are organizing a soulful summer retreat weekend. Like-minded community, like we've talked about it, to get together with like-minded people. We're doing it in Algonquin Park from June 27th to Monday, June 30th. There's still a few spots left. It's in the beautiful Algonquin Park in nature. We're going to do lots of meditations, lots of also nature activities. There's lots of wildlife there, lots of moose. So it's going to be a jam-packed weekend with all very, very interesting stuff that we love to do. So yeah, so Tara, thanks a lot
yeah,
for doing this interview.
yeah.
Um, all the best. Where they're in Austin. Have fun there in Texas. I've been there 20 years ago. I love the States. I love Texas. I
Yeah.
hope to be back soon. Soon in the States. Me and Mac, we visit the States often. It's really amazing. So thank you, Tara, and see you later, maybe.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great. So, yeah.
Okay, so thanks for watching, people. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like my content, and I'll see you next video. Bye bye.